The laughter started before she even reached the front row. Some people covered their mouths. Others made no effort to hide it. The widow heard every word. Still, she kept walking. The village hall was filled beyond capacity that morning. Wooden benches stretched across the room. Elders sat at the front. Family members occupied the center rows. Curious neighbors crowded near the windows. Everyone had gathered for one reason. Chief Kofi Mensah's estate. 3 months had passed since the respected farmer was buried. 3 months since his death. And 3 months since greed entered the family. Look at her dress. A woman shook her head. She actually thinks she'll get something. More laughter followed. The widow's name was Abina. Her black mourning dress had faded from countless washings. Her sandals were worn thin. Her face carried the weight of sleepless nights and unanswered prayers. Before she could take a seat, a voice interrupted. That place isn't for you. The room became quiet. Abina turned. Standing there was Kwesi Mensah, her late husband's older brother. For months he had acted as though Kofi's death had crowned him ruler of everything.
Before we start this story, please support us by subscribing to this channel. Thank you.
Meeting concerns family, Kwesi said loudly. You should stand at the back. Abina swallowed. I am family. The statement was simple. Yet it triggered fresh laughter. Kwesi spread his arms dramatically. Family. My brother is dead. More laughter erupted. Everything he owned belongs to the Mensah family. Abina lowered her eyes. She knew arguing would change nothing. None of these people had stood beside Kofi when he owned nothing. None of them had watched him struggle through droughts. None of them had helped build the farm. Yet now they wanted everything. At the front of the hall sat several folders. Land titles. Bank records. Farm documents. Property deeds. Everything Kofi had worked decades to build. Everything his relatives were already preparing to divide. Then the village chief stood. The lawyer has arrived. The room immediately fell silent. A man carrying a leather briefcase entered. He greeted the elders respectfully before taking his seat. Kwesi smiled confidently. His brother smiled too. They believed victory was already theirs. None of them noticed the sealed envelope hidden inside the lawyer's briefcase. An envelope bearing Kofi's handwriting. An envelope untouched since the day before his death. An envelope that was about to destroy every plan they had made. But before anyone could understand its importance, they would first need to understand how everything began. 28 years earlier, Kofi Mensah owned almost nothing. No farm. No tractor. No cattle. No savings. Only a small piece of rocky land inherited from his father. Most people considered the land useless. Nothing grew there except stubborn weeds. When Kofi announced his intention to become a farmer, people laughed. Among those laughing was his older brother Kwesi. You'll starve before harvest. The prediction became a village joke. Yet one person believed in him. Abina. At the time she sold vegetables at the local market. Her earnings were small. But her faith in Kofi was enormous. When others mocked him, she encouraged him. When he doubted himself, she reminded him why he started. After they married, life remained difficult. There were days they ate only one meal. Weeks when crops failed. Months when debts piled up. Several times Kofi considered giving up. Each time Abina refused. We didn't come this far to quit. Those words became their family motto. Slowly things changed. The first successful harvest brought hope. The second brought profit. The third changed everything. Year after year their farm expanded. More land. More crops. More workers. More success. Eventually Kofi became one of the wealthiest farmers in the district. People who once mocked him suddenly called him wise. Relatives who never visited suddenly appeared. Among them was Kwesi, the same brother who once predicted failure. Now he constantly visited asking for loans, requesting favors, seeking opportunities. Kofi helped whenever possible, because that was the kind of man he was. Generous, trusting, kind. Perhaps too kind. Abina often noticed something troubling. The more successful Kofi became, the more entitled his relatives seemed. Especially Kwesi. Whenever money was discussed, Kwesi behaved as though family success belonged to everyone except the people who created it. Still, Kofi ignored the warning signs. Their family. Those two words explain everything. Unfortunately, they would also become his greatest mistake. The sickness began quietly. A cough. Fatigue. Small symptoms nobody considered dangerous. Kofi continued working. He always worked. But the cough worsened. Soon he struggled to finish simple tasks. The strongest man in the district suddenly looked tired. Abina begged him to see a doctor. He resisted. Then one morning he collapsed beside a tractor. That was when everyone realized something was seriously wrong. Tests followed. Hospital visits followed. More tests. More hospital visits. The diagnosis shocked the family. A severe illness had been silently growing inside him. Treatment began immediately. For months Abina barely left his side. She slept in hospital chairs. She sold jewelry to cover expenses. She prayed every night. Meanwhile, relatives visited occasionally. They offered sympathy. They offered advice. But most disappeared after a few minutes. Only Abina remained. One evening, shortly before sunset, Kofi asked everyone to leave his room except his lawyer. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. Nobody knew what was discussed. Not even Abina. Afterward, Kofi appeared strangely peaceful. The next day he called Abina to his bedside. "If anything happens, stay strong." She began crying. "Nothing is going to happen." Kofi smiled weakly. "Promise me." Reluctantly, she nodded. 3 days later, he died. And everything changed. The funeral attracted hundreds. People praised Kofi's generosity, his hard work, his achievements. The speeches sounded beautiful. The actions afterward told a different story. Less than a week after burial, Kwesi arrived with several relatives. They entered the farmhouse as though they owned it. They inspected documents, opened cabinets, moved furniture, issued instructions. Abina watched in disbelief. "This belongs to the family now," Kwesi declared. Within days they took control of vehicles, farm accounts, storage facilities, business records. Workers were instructed to answer only to Kwesi. Anyone who questioned him was threatened. When Abina protested, she was ignored. When she demanded explanations, she was mocked. "You're only a widow." The words cut deeply. Yet worse was coming. One morning she discovered that even the family house was being discussed. According to Kwesi, she should move back to her parents' village. The home she spent 28 years building was suddenly being treated like borrowed property. For the first time, fear entered her heart. What if they succeeded? Abina refused to surrender. She visited elders. She sought advice. She requested intervention. Most listened politely. Then did nothing. Kwesi's influence was strong. His confidence convinced people he was right. Weeks passed. The pressure increased. Bills accumulated. Savings disappeared. Several times Abina considered giving up. Then she remembered the years she spent building everything alongside Kofi. She remembered the sacrifices, the struggles, the dreams. She could not walk away. One afternoon, while organizing old documents, she received unexpected news. The family lawyer wanted a meeting. A final estate meeting. Attendance required. Abina felt hope for the first time in months. She did not know why. But something about the lawyer's tone felt different. Back inside the village hall, the lawyer opened his briefcase. Several documents appeared. The room leaned forward. Kwesi smiled confidently. Everything seemed under control. Then the lawyer removed the sealed envelope. Immediately the atmosphere changed. "What is that?" someone asked. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. This was left by Chief Kofi Mensah. The smile disappeared from Kwesi's face. The lawyer continued. "It was delivered to me personally 3 days before his death." Murmurs spread throughout the room. The lawyer carefully broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter. Several pages long. Signed by Kofi himself. Silence filled the hall. Even the children near the window stopped moving. Then the lawyer began reading. "My beloved family, if this letter is being read, then I have gone to rest." Every eye remained fixed on him. No one realized the next few minutes would change everything forever. The letter described years of sacrifice. Years of struggle. Years of building. Then Kofi wrote something unexpected. "The person who stood beside me when nobody believed in me was Abina." The lawyer paused. The room became quieter. "Not my brothers. Not my cousins. Not my friends. Abina." The widow covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. The lawyer continued reading. "Every acre of land we own was purchased through our combined effort. Every building. Every tractor. Every success." People exchanged nervous glances. Kwesi shifted uncomfortably. The letter was no longer heading where he expected. Then came the real shock. Kofi revealed that years earlier he had legally transferred most properties into a protected trust. A trust controlled by the lawyer. A trust whose primary beneficiary was Abina. Gasps echoed throughout the hall. Kwesi stood abruptly. "That's impossible." The lawyer calmly produced signed documents. Official stamps. Legal records. Every document was authentic. The room erupted. The reading continued. Kofi had anticipated conflict. He specifically mentioned relatives who only appeared after success arrived. Without naming names, everyone knew exactly who he meant. Faces turned toward Kwesi. Whispers spread. The same people who laughed earlier were now silent. Then came the final instruction. Abina would inherit control of the farm. The houses. The equipment. The savings. Everything. Not because Kofi loved her more than family, but because she helped build it. The room exploded with reactions. Kwesi looked stunned. For months he had acted like the owner. Now everyone knew the truth. The humiliation was complete. The lawyer turned to the final page. Kofi's closing message filled the room. "If my wife is standing alone while this letter is being read, I ask every honest person present to remember one thing. Success has many relatives. Struggle does not." Many lowered their eyes. Ashamed. Kofi continued. "The people who help build your future should never be forgotten once success arrives." By now even some relatives were crying. The truth carried a weight nobody could ignore. When the meeting ended, nobody laughed anymore. The same widow who entered humiliated left respected. The same people who mocked her now greeted her with kindness. As for Kwesi, his influence disappeared overnight. His plans collapsed. His greed exposed him publicly. Abina walked outside holding the letter against her chest. For the first time since Kofi's death, she felt peace. Because justice had finally arrived. Not through anger. Not through revenge. But through truth. And sometimes truth is the most powerful inheritance of all.